So let's start off by thinking about the opportunity that AI presents. Deepika, you must be getting so many inquiries from your customers because obviously BT has so many customers. How is a company like yours actually using AI to serve customers better?
Thank you, Lizzy. We have about 20 million customers across in the UK and 450 stores that we operate from our consumer side of the business, and we have 1 million business customers as well. So there's a lot of customer interaction that we do. And like with any telco organizations out there or anything that has any CX platform out there, we are invested quite broadly into our chatbots. We want to be able to give customers the same amount of experience they have online. They have a lot of AI-driven experiences, personalized experiences, data-driven experiences, and also a lot of decision experiences they already have in their hands, which is well understood from where they're coming from. So we strive to be able to provide those experiences back to the customers and stay aboard with their expectations. And then also to be able to bring efficiency to them in a wider state of understanding either with the business customer or the consumer directly, to be able to say, what are your options? Where do you go? And also provide a service that is quite seamless with the sales. So there is a lot that we've invested in from the vast amount of data we have sitting with ourselves and with AI being applied on top of it and the several use cases we serve back. It is quite interesting, and we're seeing a lot of productive feedback back from the customers. We're seeing a lot of productive feedback back from our colleagues, agents who work with the customers as well as the businesses, from how they service, the productivity in service, and the feedback that we get as well.
And Wendy, is it similar in banking? I'm wondering, we're going to discuss the future, but right now, what can AI already do when it comes to retail banking?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And by the way, thanks for having us, all three of us on. We've been using AI actually within NatWest Group for a long period of time. And probably our models are about 15% AI based. And so the type of things that it would be used for would be, yes, personalization, very relevant there, but also for protection and keeping our customers safe. AI is particularly good for finding the needle in a haystack. So fin crime, fraud, that type of thing it's really good for. So these are the types of places that the scaled AI can be used for. And of course, let's face it, we also have introduced Gen AI into our chatbot.
Yeah.
She has had 10.8 million.
She,
sorry. Shouldn't say she, should I? Very genderish, but I do call her a she. Probably shouldn't do that.
Does she have a name?
Cora is her name. And as I'm not in marketing, the Cora, that's traditional AI, blended with the Gen AI, she's known as Cora Plus. Okay, which is why I do technology and not. But yeah, so we incorporate in a number of ways.
And Sara, you've worked a lot on the investment banking and capital market side. What are the use cases beyond the consumer side in banking? What's driving the innovation for you?
Yeah, I think it's important to take a step back as well when we look at the adoption rates of AI across all industries, including banking and financial services, irrespective of what area of banking that you work in. And this was really thanks to the launch of ChatGPT, because it's a large language model and we'd never had a large language model made public previously. So ChatGPT had over 100 million users in 2 months, and we had CEOs going home at the end of the day having dinner with their kids, and they were talking about the same thing that they were speaking about in the boardroom.
I feel there's like life before ChatGPT and life after ChatGPT.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about adoption and the fast pace of adoption, I think that's really, really key. And I think it garnered so many users because it adds value and of its usability. And I think that's really, really important. So as a result of that, you have everybody who would never have seen themselves as technologists or want to go near technology as really embracing that. So we have thousands of use cases of AI across the bank, including within our investment bank. We've seen in numerous banks They're using it to give better financial advice, to assess market, to predict the market and assess market conditions time, faster than a human would be able to react to the markets. And to Wendy's point, we've used AI in financial services and investment banking for close to 50 years, but it's the changes that generative AI have brought about that give new data, new insights, and make us more agile in the market.
Now, at this point, I just want to bring in a question from the audience. It's popped up on the screen in front of me. I will say, if you have any, do send them in through the QR code. And if you would like to target them at a particular panelist, feel free to specify. But here's the first one. Given the transformative potential of AI in the telecoms industry, so Deepika, I'm sure this is for you, particularly with the rollout of 5G networks, how can AI be leveraged to accelerate product development and time to market, but still ensure that optimal performance and reliability?
Great question. We think about this all the time, right? So I think the first wave of a lot of the use cases that we worked on at BT have been, as we said, from a CX perspective, how do we service our consumers better? How do we use data to be able to get back to certain sales and personalize and all of that? Once we have understood those use cases, the second step of use cases that we are looking at is end-to-end process reinvention, which means when you're serving up a customer, how do you bring all of the nuance of how the networks are working? How do you understand the entire the remit and the bandwidth of everything that we are doing? So we've brought in a lot of, funnily enough, with 2G decommissioning and 3G decommissioning as well. There's a lot of AI we've used in there to be able to tell us, how to decommission it, how to go first, how to go second, and all of that. With 5G and also potentially 7G coming in, we are keeping a tight eye on the network availability to be able to let businesses know or customers know of how their network availability looks like, and how do we transition that any of the field operations that we need to make available. And as a whole data set, how do we come back to the customer to service them better and better? And because we have such large profile of data, and it sits from customer understanding to how our networks work, even for businesses, where they use most of their spending in, and also how they use their data across. We service a lot of those use cases going back to be able to let them know how their availability works with the networks, or how we show a lot of availability across the customer usage as well. So there is a vast amount of things that we could do, especially with network availability and how network data is going at the moment. There's a lot of use cases we're working on.
I hope that answers the question of whoever submitted that anonymously. I hope there'll be more. Let's just talk about how this transition is going then. Wendy, where are you up to in banking as an industry?
As an industry, I think a lot of the excitement at the dinner table was met again with excitement around the organisations, and I think every bank, every organisation probably had the same thing. Hey, this is cool. Yeah. So one of the things that one has to do is to be very careful about how that happens. So exploring, putting data out onto the internet, not ideal when you have personal, private data that you want to keep safe. So severing, to a degree, our large language from the internet and having a safe space in which to experiment. I think a lot of the industry has gone in that direction. I really applaud that. The second thing was really to the sort of the federation of what good ideas there were, right? Whereas before it would have a tendency to be, if you want something that's an IT transition or an activity that was changing the business, you would tend to go, almost, you'd have the senior people having a think through, getting a strategy and whatever. And in this case, we have a real federation of those ideas. And rather like, I suspect with Deepika, we actually pulled those together. We went through, we ranked them, prioritised them. We got something around 100 that were actually pretty good ones. And by pretty good, it would be either it keeps our customers safer, or it protects more generally the industry, and so on. Or there's a really good business case. It's really cool. It's really good personalisation. And actually, we then took a sample of those and we worked through those in 2023 and 2024. And I suspect that many organisations, I don't think NatWest Group is the only one who's taken something of a careful but open-minded approach to these things in order to just refine those use cases, because the technology itself, technology trends come and go, but this one just feels a bit different. And I think that's really where so many people have actually, started to really get involved with that.
There's a question that's just come in that I feel is really relevant to this. So what strategies do you employ to ensure adherence to the data privacy regulations, but while handling this customer data and implementing these AI projects within your organisation? I mean, maybe you can speak broadly to the industry on that, Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, I can, but probably the specificity of how we've done, as a regulated entity, how we're doing it, and maybe Sara has also an opinion from the sort of investment side of things. So we actually have our model risk actually reaching out across both AI and non-AI controls. We have data and AI ethics principles which are firmly adhered to, and they would be things like ensuring there's human agency, ensuring that it's free from bias, that it's technically robust, reliable and safe. So really looking then broader at things like, is this societally and environmentally an okay thing to do? So principles like that. The key thing though, and I think we were having a discussion just beforehand, the key thing though, this is a thing that is evolving very, very quickly. So the idea being that you have to really be thinking about evolution while you're thinking about controls.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think everyone is going to be in that sort of position.
So Sara, is it the same on the investment banking side?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the challenges that we have when we look to implement AI and we look at its capabilities. There are some barriers to that, and making sure that we are the customer and our clients are at the centre of everything that we do. Even with regulations, we also have a duty of care to protect and educate our customers on those. So that is something that is a real challenge. So, I mean, we've got incredibly stringent controls, considerations at all stages. And to Wendy's point, you need to have a human in the loop and consideration outside of AI for how you protect around those as well. So a technology and non-technology side to focus in on those.
Because I kind of wonder from a regulatory standpoint how much that's a help or a hindrance. We've had a change of government, we've had all these new regulations. In this transition to bringing in AI, is there anything that could be done to make it easier? Or do you feel supported? Do you feel championed in this transition?
I think it's, I don't want to comment on regulators specifically, but I'd say that it's up to the organisation, right, to make sure that they're managing those risks. Yeah. I mean, from a personal perspective and with other banks that I've advised as a management consultant, I would, we see that, I mean, it's a risk, banks take a risk-based approach irrespective of the regulations. And like I said, the customers and their experience and their safety is an absolute priority for any industry that I'm aware of that has customers. So I think it is focusing on that and making sure they're mitigating that risk. Obviously, you need to adhere to regulations, but there is that consideration there of looking after the risk irrespective of that.
That's what I hear from so many business leaders when they're navigating all of this. Let's take this next question that's been sent in. They say, you made the distinction between tradition and generative AI. Can you talk, or will you talk about the investment that you're thinking about with regards to generative, and what are the expectations in terms of the timing of returns on investment and real efficiency gains?
Would you like me to take that?
If you're volunteering.
Sure, I will. I'll take that because in June we actually did announce it, Cora Plus. So it is a combination of traditional and generative AI. So what can we tell with that? So just to Sara's point, we have to be very careful with that. So to get an agreement to be able to put Gen AI in the public for our customers, there were a range of things we had to do. And one of the things we had to do was to cap how many conversations that we had and check every time the conversations were had that there weren't any hallucinations, because obviously you tend not to get those with deterministic AI, but you do get them with generative AI. So it meant that we were really in the weeds with what we were doing. And of course, you can't put something out there and say it's successful without data points. So at what point could you be able to say that this is a return on investment that's worth making? So we checked things like, well, obviously accuracy. So from a technical implementation point of view, of course, that's standard. But actually looking at the containment rates, the speed with which a customer was able to be satisfied, their actual opinion on the satisfaction of the answers and so on. We actually saw that that was coming through as 150%, of way higher actually than what we had anticipated, so much so that we were able to keep that pilot running. It was initially a pilot in live, but a pilot nonetheless. It was going to be for 12 weeks and it's now going to be for 12 months because the amount of data that we're learning about how people interact with it is really strong. But seeing the benefit to the customers of doing that and having a more natural language interaction to quickly get to the answers that they need or the things that they need, and a satisfaction that improves, that is a return on investment because obviously you can do that instead of doing it another way.
Yeah, so I feel like this theme of learning as you go comes up again and again. Deepika, I was wondering what advice you'd give to everyone in the room if you're a business getting AI ready. How do you do it, to Milan's point, without disruption?
Absolutely. Are we talking about large organization, medium or small? So there's a different landscape, right? How you use AI to go through your business needs or requirements to your customers. How do you provide certain experiences? Essentially for any business out there, and we work with a lot of businesses through our BT business side of our organization, and we always tell them that you have to be able to understand the buckets that you want to operate back to your customers. It is what experiences do you provide to your customers, from how do you interact with them, how do you understand your interactions with them, and how do you use AI to provide a better efficient interaction. How do you work within the communities of your organization to be able to bring more efficiency, productivity, and gains into your organization that creates efficiency so you can provide better services back to your customers. And also if you're a small business organization, there's so much potential to use marketing, creatives, and a lot of reach out to predictive analytics or a lot of the details on personalization that can put you a step ahead of other businesses. So there's a lot of scope over there as well. Over and above all of that, how do you contribute back to the community of the business that you're, sectors that you're operating in? So we work with our businesses across the BT business to be able to enable a lot of digital spectrum for them as well, because we provide a lot of digital tooling from the network impact that we give them as well. So we are also educating them how to use AI across their businesses, and it's a really good sort of sentiment that we bring back as well. So pick the buckets that you want to be able to work on, understand the data that you have, see that you interact well with your customers, and also understand how you can bring productivity and efficiency back that will help the customers grow.
So it all sounds nice. There's someone out there in the audience who wants to know, Deepika, what's the financial impact that you predict Gen AI will have at BT?
I think we just did our financial earnings calls as well, so that's quite on point. We are very ambitious at BT. Extremely ambitious. What we started doing, we are well ahead of our data journey as well. All of our data is in GCP. We have multi-cloud strategy. We use GCP and AWS. So our foundations for data, foundations for AI, and how we work across the business, our data governance and our data ethics and all of that are firmly built into our foundations. The next step is to scale. The way we have invested in 12 use cases across the organization, we have a vast landscape. We have the EE side, consumer business, the B2B business. We have open reach that we work across operations. And we also have networks that goes across all of it. And we have a large amount of colleague base of 120,000 colleagues. So we have to see how our communities are built as well. With all of that, the next, and we've invested in use cases across it, which range from chatbots, which range from understanding our field operations better. We've made an investments there. We're getting return on investment. The next step for us is to do end-to-end services, to do process reinvention, which addresses the business end-to-end, to be able to have an AI-first thinking, and to be able to see, is it an AI use case before even a digital use case or a digital journey for us, which then that brings us to a certain amount of amazing numbers where we think we can make about easily through data and AI about 1 billion in return on investment in the next 5 years. But we want to be further more ambitious because we have growth targets, cost transformation targets about 3 billion, but we have further growth targets in the organization, and we want to be able to push the lever a lot to be able to see that we can get a lot of return on investment by underpinning our strategy with data and AI first.
Okay, really interesting, and I'm glad we put a number on it. Well, given that we're at this time of year when we are budgeting and everyone's planning ahead, Wendy, what sort of industry-wide trends are you seeing?
Industry, really looking at colleague, to your point, where even minutes shaved off a colleague's time will be a really big benefit. So very much sort of colleague augmentation, so improving the way that colleagues are able to do things, freeing them up for the sort of human being part. I'm seeing that a lot. And then stepping into working in digital, your competition isn't the other banks. Your competition is everything that exists. And so it's really a case of just looking at the horizon, what is coming, what do we need to do to actually incorporate that sort of ease expectation in a regulated framework. So I'd say those are the big trends.
Well, Sara, if your competition is everything, maybe you can answer this next question. Given the continuous advancements in AI capabilities, how do you ensure that your products stay relevant and continue to address genuine customer needs, and it's not just AI for the sake of AI? It's a good question, that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Our products are our customers, so we have to adapt our products to meet our customer needs. So we don't just create a product and put it out there. It's what is the customer problem that we're trying to solve for, and that is at the forefront of when we think creatively and innovatively around what our clients need. So it's very much a focus as part of that. Like at the moment, yesterday and today, we're doing a 24-hour hackathon in Barclays, which is offices around the globe, over 2,000 people. And we're looking at the biggest problems that our clients have across the bank, and how can we solve for them using Gen AI. It's the second time we've done it in 6 months. So it's that type of knowledge, using all different people from across the organisation to challenge, test and make sure that our products are fit for what our customer needs, but also that we're using the most up-to-date technology, we've got the most up-to-date thoughts, and that we're using the most amount of data and evidence to back that up.
Wendy, you mentioned that our competition is everybody, it's not just colleagues, but I'm sure there are lots of people who are worried that they're going to be displaced by robots and that their jobs are going to be on the line because of AI. How do you stay relevant? Is this something that your teams are asking about? And when they do, what do you tell them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It does come up all the time. So certainly if you actually, so generative AI in particular looks like it's human. And in fact, look at some of the things that it does really well. It looks like it's superhuman. So it's bound to make people freak out a little bit.
Of course,
it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a job. This thing is so much better. If you actually go back to the mathematics of it and how it works, it's actually superhuman at certain things and really not very good at all at other things. And the things that it's not very good at all at, humans are brilliant at. We don't just look at data. We have optical ability, looking at people. We are able to intuitively see things. We interact in a particular way and so on. That's not, we reason in a particular way. That's not where Gen AI is amazing. But where Gen AI is amazing, it really is. So it is definitely an augmentation side of things. But for example, it can be very frightening when you think about, you look at it, you see it, you use ChatGPT, it answers questions more quickly than you can. You do get that feeling of fear. And so what we've done with our, overall with our organisation, I know a lot of organisations are thinking of doing that, is upskill everyone, AI awareness for everyone, not allowing that fear to paralyse people and make them feel disenfranchised, in fact, to make them feel empowered. And certainly when we did a pilot of a programme of getting AI awareness in people who are not technical, it turned them into champions. I mean, they were so pro. I can see where it could be used here. I can see, really excited. You know, that's really evangelical, whereas before they'd been a little bit concerned. So I think that's the way to do it. Just demystify and get people involved.
Deepika, do you get that enthusiasm across departments, across
Absolutely.
ages?
Yeah, and then the one thing that we've been trying to get it across to our agents, to our customer service agents, even to our sales teams who think they know, you know, how do they approach, you know, how do they use AI? We've been talking about giving them wings. It's like their digital twin. You can use it for efficiency. You can use it for better language sometimes. You can use it to understand if the call went better. You can summarize the calls better. So there is a lot of that adoption-oriented, you know, conversations that we are having across the teams to say that, as you said, even if it's 10% of productivity that you see in their day-to-day, it's a lot. Even if you're able to give a service team member an understanding of how they've done today or how many customers they've spoken to and how the customers feel about the conversations, it's a great win. To continuously go back to the team and say, yes, you are in charge of this. You're the ones who are servicing the customer, but how do we provide these wings? How do we automate chores that you do not want to do? How do we automate the questions? Or when you want to be able to, quantify a customer for certain things, that can be done, automatically. And you don't have to waste your time for chores. You can use it for better purposes of serving value back.
Which is what you were saying, really. Get the boring stuff done by the AI and then you can focus on the human bits. Exactly. But Sara, when everything's changing so fast, I can barely keep up. How do you stay on top of it all as an employee?
It's quite challenging. I think even people who work in AI, because it's so rapidly advancing, it's quite hard to keep up to date. I think it is about educating people, and we've all spoken about that now. AI is absolutely a team sport, and you need the different perspectives of the different functions, the different client types, the different people throughout the organisation. So, I mean, it's keeping up to speed on trends, challenging ourselves, and utilising some of the fintechs and providers that we partner with to make sure that we are using the most up-to-date advancements and that we have that education. But education is of the entire population of each of the industries that we work in is really, really key, including our clients in that as well. And I think that's how we stay on top of it.
Okay. I just want to throw out a question that we've been sent in, and if there's any more, do feel free. How are you choosing your LLM models? Are you adopting a multi-provider approach? Does anyone want to take that?
I'll take it. It's the type of thing that you're not meant to say, isn't it? So we are using a range of large language models, and in particular because some of the models will be more appropriate to certain use cases than others. But in addition to having, say, Cora using a particular large language model, you'll remember I said that we check a human in the loop all the time. Well, the human in the loop doesn't have to be there all the time. So we've actually got a large language model, which is a different one, to do the judging, so that we actually have two sets of data. One is the large language model, one is a different large language model. We call it the judge, just to be a bit dramatic. And the judge actually is able to take an evaluation of what's going on. And so it's really a case of horses for courses. And while we're on the topic of large language models, I might as well put out there that large language models can be very data hungry. They can be very hungry from an energy perspective. So thinking about whether or not you should be using chained short language models, small language models, or is this the most appropriate way to do things, and refining that, I suspect that is going to come. So that will be something that it nudges towards.
Yeah, and just to add to that, something when you do a large amount of use cases, then you want to be able to have an evaluation metrics as well, to be able to understand what are the business KPIs that you have, what are you servicing back, when do you use, and certain large language models or different LLM providers have small language models for certain use cases. Then you can use large language models depending on the questions that you use and how you go through the journey. So there's a lot happening on a day-to-day basis with the large language models and the providers and where we are going. I think understanding the weights and biases of each of these models to be able to use the right ones, multi-LLM provider approach is always great, because all the LLM providers have different specializations they come with. For example, Anthropic comes with more ethics and how do you have a certain voice. Mistral comes with a lot of small language model, large language model, cost implications, and all of those other things. So it's always good to have evaluation metrics based on the business KPIs you're delivering, the kind of use cases that you're building.
Okay, I feel like we could continue this conversation for the whole hour, but thank you so much to all of you for our first panel and for the really great questions. So a round of applause for our first panel. Thank you.